All right, so I think we're live. So I will call to order the policy meeting agenda of November 15th at 7:06 p.m. You guys just can't get rid of me. Last Monday. Jonathan.
We don't want to.
You don't want to. I don't want to. All in favor of keeping Margaret.
I don't think I'm even allowed to vote.
I believe since we have a quorum, that's a binding vote.
That's adjourn right there.
But we've got on the agenda, I think we've got the homeschool policy, and I think Corey, this one is you. So if you
Yes, this is me. So when I looked at our current homeschool policy and saw that the last time that it was updated was in 1999, I thought it was a good time for us to relook at this, especially since there have been some changes in the legislation and really we are working to match our practices to the legislation as it stands now. And that is why the CABE version, especially the first sentence there, which says that parents wishing to homeschool their children may do so in compliance with the Connecticut general statutes and regulations. And that is 10-184. So it's important that that is stated, I believe, like that. You will notice that it's a lot leaner than our old policy, but that first sentence does encompass all the components that are listed in our old policy. I would suggest, depending on how the committee feels, that we could pull off from the old policy number 1, just to make it clear that parents need to reach out to the schools with a notice of intent. So it's really popping out one part of that policy, of the statute, sorry, 10-184.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one of my questions. It seemed like that was one of the big differences. The old policy, while old, it was clear that parents needed to do that, and it wasn't clear to me from the new one. I was thought, oh, is that not a requirement anymore? But you're saying it is, so it probably should be clearer.
So we do have two choices, right? We could, Corey, in fact, include everything that was in the old policy. However, I think what you really wanted to make sure that was there was that reference to the law. So long as the reference to the law is there, and if we wanted to just keep it lean, we could just have number 1. But if you wanted, there's nothing in the old policy that's inaccurate.
Correct.
It doesn't have the reference to the
statute at the time.
statute, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can't require parents to provide a portfolio. So, I mean, I think that keeping number 1 and adding that to the CABE would cover everything that we need to have popped out. I also do think in the CABE, the third paragraph where it says when parents or guardians return their children, the school staff shall provide an appropriate return. I just think that's a nice reminder. We are doing that, but just a nice reminder that it's transitioning kids back in, similar to coming in and out of coming from a different district. And I just know the conversations that I have been having with parents are all captured in that statute, which is making sure that if they have a high schooler, that they're paying attention to graduation requirements, if they're getting online education, referring them to our online policy. So it really is all captured in 10-184.
I mean, I'm all for the simpler version. Again, if it captures everything. It felt like our old version, it was almost like how to fill out the form kind of thing. It felt very instructional to me and not policy. But again, I'm sure there were reasons for it, but 22 years ago was a long time ago.
Right.
The other thing in ours, it refers to, I mean, it's pretty specific language of saying they must show equivalency of instruction in the studies taught in the public schools. Versus, so I don't know, I mean, I guess, is that what the statute covers? Is that language of equivalency of instruction, or?
It's softer for sure. It is not that.
Okay.
It is definitely softer. It depends. I mean, it says for parents who may wish to return a child, consideration should be given to ensuring that homeschool coursework aligns with the Connecticut state graduation requirements. The Connecticut State Department does not accredit any online or virtual schools, so it's not as strong as what the policy currently is, if I'm making sense.
Yep. So with your experience with, current homeschool situations last year and stuff, the CABE policy, like you said, it's specific enough? Do you think it leaves too much open for interpretation, or is too simple? Or, I mean, would it be something where you wouldn't feel that it had that level of detail that you needed if you were asked by a parent?
I think I think if we add that first part, just making it clear that they need to contact us. The truth is, if parents do not contact the school district and they remove their kid without putting out any kind of enrolling them in homeschool and filling out this paperwork, then they can be reported to DCF.
Right.
Because they're truant.
Corey, would
So
you?
I thought that was important to be really clear that you do have to fill in the form provided by the state, and you do have to contact the school district and
So
provide
Corey,
information.
would you feel more comfortable, or do you think, in maybe this is a question for the committee, even though it's a little bit longer, the 2 pages, if we included the reference to the statute and then also included the 8 elements of the statute, would that, do you think that adds more confusion or is more ambiguous, or would you recommend?
I don't think all 8 match the language of the state anymore. I think the language of the state is softer. Suggested, may are words that I see there and here in these 8.
Shall.
It's much stronger, shall, yeah.
And also, like you said, I think number 5, the annual portfolio review can't be required anymore anyway, right?
It's not required, it's optional. And it says that on the CABE, on the second page of the CABE policy, it's optional. So I just don't think the verbiage matches enough to keep it.
Okay.
Is there anything, would it help? So in the, and I know regulations isn't the purview of the board, it's your purview, but it looks like, there's I guess the appendix is the form. Probably that must be the one that's provided by the state that they would fill out. Is that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, we would make this our form instead of nutmeg.
Nutmeg.
And do you feel like there's any regulation that you would want to put it, again, not the purview of us, but perhaps regulations are a place where you could have some more of the detail. Like I know the old policy had some, and this one doesn't, but again,
I don't know. I mean, maybe part of maybe instead of 1 from the old policy, maybe the first paragraph in the regulation. That's really clear that they need what they need to do if they want to homeschool.
Yeah, if the intent of adding some language there is to make it really clear to them what they've got to do, this gives even that much more level of clarity. A notice of intent within 10 days and to whom they send it.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Okay.
Beside that, no.
Corey, just to clarify, in terms of the expectation though, so parents complete the intent. I know in practice right now, we're meeting with every family member, whether it's physically or digitally or on the phone, to go through what they've identified as the subjects that are being taught. If we don't agree with what the family is doing, then what would be the recourse? The family would go back and redo, identify where the weaknesses were, and then come back. You know, homeschooling has always been gray. And so, you know, I acknowledge that this is a challenge for every school district, but in terms of our practices, just going back to the point that Margaret was bringing with regulations.
We suggest and we support according to the statute. We review, the state now is providing more support for parents who are homeschooling. Of course, the last 18 months have created a lot more material and support for parents than there used to be. But
with removal of the annual portfolio, where you're not even having the opportunity to come back and check in, it feels like it's, and you know, again, it's not, it's always been gray, but it feels like there isn't that level of accountability for the district and for the parent.
it really only comes in the transition back, when, depending on the level that the student is coming back to, how they show that they are ready for the next level course. So how they demonstrate that they completed geometry. And that is really up to the school district to determine the placement process as they transition back. We also do give credit, if you remember our online policy, for certain online courses. So that is something that I suggest to parents of high schoolers. We have very few high schoolers that I've spoken to in the last 8 months that are homeschooling. It's been more at the elementary and beginning of middle school level, where there isn't the same credit conversation at this point.
Okay.
It seems like if we want, this one can go to the full board for a first read at the next meeting, with taking the first paragraph of the regulation from the old policy and putting that as the lead in to CABE's, our recommended new policy with CABE.
That's appropriate.
And we'll get rid of nutmeg school.
Love that nutmeg school. All right. Excellent. All right. We can move on to, thank you, Corey. We can move on to the next agenda item, which is bylaw 9325, meeting conduct. So those of you who were in the last meeting, remember this one. We spent quite a bit of time discussing this one, and then I think realized that the current RPS policy, which wasn't that old, only a few years, was actually pretty well thought out as it was, but yet we knew we needed to add in some of the changes and updates that Shipman and Goodwin was recommending in their meeting conduct policy. So we really merged the two ideas together into the RPS version redlined, which is what is attached to the packet. So, and I think I captured all the discussion correctly, but please let me know if I didn't.
And this is why we asked you back, Margaret, on the last day.
I'm trying to think what some of the big things to move were. So I think one of the biggest change, well, so we used the RPS policy as the template, the starting point, added in the Shipman stuff, but we also moved the Shipman stuff around a little bit because it was confusing to us, especially as it got to that procedures for board members' participation by electronic equipment. There was like that effective July 1st to April 30th language that they put first. And we were like, wouldn't we rather talk about what happens after April 30th as like the starting point, and then it's like the exception is the July 1st, April 30th. So, right, Ken?
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, and then we just chop off the bottom part.
Mhm.
The part that's not applicable anymore, then everything above it is still applicable.
Right.
I think that was part of the rationale.
Right.
Margaret, there aren't page numbers, but I think it's page 3 on the screen where it's number 7, or on the packet, number 7, where it says effective July 1st, 2021 until April 30th. I know why we did that. I just wonder if it's necessary that it's repeated in A.
Oh, yeah, right. I think not, if it's clearly under, A is clearly under 7.
And then for procedures for public participation by means of electronic equipment, does that, again, this one may need to have it separated out because it doesn't have it above, or is it understood that that is still within 7? That statement, the procedures for public participation
Yeah,
by means of electronic equipment, is that to be perceived under number 7? Or should it be delineated as different?
good question.
Even either way, I think at the risk of redundancy, I think it's worth having it there again, just
Okay,
based on the subject matter.
and Margaret, if we're redlining, I wonder if we should just pull out the regional school district option because it doesn't really apply in A.
Oh, good point.
But as a follow-up to Dr. De Silva's comment, is the procedure for public participation part of 7, or should it be 8? It's kind of out there by itself right now.
Go back to the old one.
Yeah, I'm going back to, yeah, sorry.
Mhm.
I think they're.
It's part,
So the way that it's, the numbers are different, but if it seems like Margaret in the Shipman, it would have been like a number 8 because it's number 4 in Shipman's.
Right, it's separate, right, that's what I was just saying, it's a separate number.
Yeah.
but here, hold on.
So Ken, to your point, if
I
we
think-
didn't want it as a separate number, then no, it doesn't. Yeah.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. It's good.
Yeah.
And the redlining of it and how I'm looking at it is, no, it's right. Just essentially what we would just remove 7 on May 1st. 7 is just no longer applicable.
Yes.
Otherwise, all of that, this is, yes. Yeah, anyway, sorry.
Margaret, I'm sorry, because I know you did so much work with this, and so there, I hate to,
I think it's good.
but should, right below procedures for public participation, should effective July 1, should that be A? Like, I'm just thinking the way that it's structured. So above we have A and then numbers.
Good point. Yeah, then it's more consistent, yes.
So then effective July 1 would be A, and then below that would be numerals rather than letters. Wait, but though, hang on.
I know, but then you get really deep in with.
Yeah, and then you're into number 1 again, and then 1A, B.
Let's see.
So perhaps it needs to stay.
Yeah, because it's got a lot more information too,
Yeah, below D.
Mhm.
than the board meeting participants.
Mhm.
or the board member participant, sorry.
Right. I mean, we could, it just gets crazy indentations.
Mhm. Yes.
But if it's clearer and more consistent, we should do that then. Although there's no B then. Like if that becomes the new A, effective July 1st to 21, there's no B. So don't you typically not put an A then?
Right.
This is getting so nitty gritty, but
Well, the reason it is because we did so much shifting from the shipments.
right.
We changed the structure of it, so.
Couldn't we just change, if we wanted to, couldn't we just change that to A and then everything else is just subsequent? A becomes B, B becomes C, C becomes D. Just for formatting sake.
I think though that if we make that first paragraph A, everything
Yep.
else is supposed to be a sub paragraph off of that, and then there's no primary B paragraph.
Right, and then you wouldn't do it an A. Yeah.
Right, right.
Well, we did it above and and for board members.
Oh, good. Yeah, good point. Okay. Yeah, either way, probably we should be consistent. So maybe we can just indent everything on this one.
Or actually, wouldn't it be easier if we unindented A and then just made 1 through 5 A through E?
Oh, that's true.
Mhm.
Wouldn't that just make it easier?
I like your thinking. Yeah, that works. Anything else that? I think we talked I mean, we went through it pretty in depth in the last meeting, so I feel like we asked a lot of our questions already,
Mhm.
as long as I reflected them correctly here. So do you feel like this one's ready to go to the board in the next meeting too for first read?
I think so.
Right. You're making my last meeting too easy.
Last meeting, what do you mean?
We're gonna make this one 5 hours. We're dragging.
We
it.
literally just voted on it, Margaret,
Yeah.
in the part of the public record.
That's right. That's right. Alrighty, and then this next one is recommended new policy for the 5,000 series on student privacy. I think this was Shipman and Goodwin who recommended the new policy. I don't know, Dr. De Silva, did you want to talk about this or?
So I actually had Aaron Crook take a look at this policy to see if there was anything that he was concerned with, and there didn't seem to be. I think generally speaking, this is a policy that we didn't have and that Shipman is recommending that we do have. So it's really if there's any questions from the Board of Education on anything that's in here. I'm pretty sure that it reflects the current practice, but not necessarily anything that we had in policy.
And this is supposed to exist along with what we already have in terms of the 5125 policy that's there. That's really more like our FERPA policy on confidentiality.
Right.
Yeah, because it confused me. I was like, I didn't know whether we were supposed to be comparing them or not, but it does sound like when I looked at the Shipman one, it also even references looking at basically your FERPA policy. So it is saying it's a separate one. So I had a question that's like, in some of it, like in number 3, Roman numeral 3, where it talks about collection of personal information for purposes of marketing, like when would we ever do something like that?
The only thing that I could think of, but I'm perhaps, I'm trying to think of an example that
What, like the financial aid?
I was, financial aid, sometimes I'm thinking like,
But it doesn't, that says it does not, it says do not apply to personal information collected from students for the exclusive purpose of developing, evaluating, or providing educational products or services for or to students or educational institutions.
Right.
Right.
That would be colleges, right?
Right. But if it's something like I think we had there was at least one person who didn't remember, releasing their personal information to a financial aid consultant, not directly to the institution, but
Okay.
to a third party.
Right, but that wasn't student information, that was the parents' information.
Right, but I think that's what it's referring to is situations like we can't give student information to that particular person, like to any.
Right, as an example.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I was using it as an example of that would be something we could not do.
Correct.
Right.
The other example I was thinking perhaps is there are companies that we use that will lower the cost, let's say, if we would engage in marketing, whether that's through, the advertisements that they're offering, like someone might click on something that would then link them to something else. But we avoid all of that in practice, especially because of privacy laws.
Yeah, I guess that's right, because I believed that we did that, so I wondered when there would even be a circumstance where we might, have to employ Roman numeral 3B, but it sounds like we wouldn't, but it's good to have the language in there, just.
Right, because all the available technology apps, you have to be careful about which ones you sign up. You have to make sure that they follow all the privacy regulations. So we warn teachers to be careful what they're signing up for, because that could inadvertently be collection. So I do think it's a good reminder.
I mean, I can't really think of any example in which it connects to kids for the purpose, again, of marketing or selling.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
I can't think of an example, but there could be. And so it protects everyone from that happening. But I think we do a pretty good job of this. There are occasions, I'm sure, where there might be a blip, but overall, I don't think that this is a concern here.
It's really a reminder that parents need access to any surveys before students take them, where we're gathering information.
right.
That's where I think that this particular policy, it is helpful from the parents' point of view, that they know, especially, Corey and I, when we looked at this policy for the first time, we were trying to think of an example in which surveying students about personal information or things like that. And you might see a survey, around in the health education curriculum or something like that. And so what this really does is protect any personal information from a student, not necessarily for the sake of marketing, but just being sure that parents know when we're surveying kids about their personal information, which is not that uncommon when looking at certain curriculum areas where we're trying to gauge, not necessarily about that particular student, but gauging understanding of particular dispositions, whether it's, self-awareness or self-management or things related to their health. or understanding your family history and how that might impact your health. But in this particular case, we would be asking parents, especially if kids were named in any way. But most of that type of stuff is anonymous.
Okay. And just as a practical matter, how then that notification to parents, are those like the emails? How do parents get notified ahead of time?
Give me an example, Margaret, in terms of what kind of email?
Oh, no, it's just because I thought you were just talking about with these surveys that parents need to be.
Oh, so different. Yeah. So surveys like in paper form is one thing, but let's just say, let's say that the district wanted to send out in their, they're common in many communities where we want to understand a little bit more about healthy habits. Before we would send a survey like that out to students, first of all, I think we have a policy that we have to get approval from the Board of Education before we would even send out a survey like that. And once the board gave approval, then we would notify families that this is the type of survey that their child will be engaged in.
Can I just add that we don't use any services that are not part of the Connecticut State digital privacy.
Right, that's what I was trying to remember then.
Yeah, so they in order for us to use it, we require that they be part of the state's identified list who comply with the state regulations for data privacy.
Right, because those are some of the notifications that parents used to get about.
Right. But so, for example, a common survey that some communities will give, Margaret, is the asset survey. You probably have heard of that, right? So that would be something, in order to give it to our students, we would need a Board of Education approval. And then subsequently, we would inform families that this was something that their students would be participating in.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then the one, and I know you mentioned that you spoke with Aaron Crook. The one about the non-invasive or non-emergency invasive physical examinations and screenings. What is that?
Is that vision? Non-invasive?
Are you in definition? Are you in?
Roman numeral 4, I'm sorry, non-emergency.
So that's scoliosis.
But it's, I thought so, but it says scoliosis.
Oh, excludes.
That's why I wasn't sure what it could be.
Vision. Why is it vision or hearing?
You're in Roman numeral 4, Margaret?
Yeah, but under B it says except for hearing, vision, or scoliosis, and those were the only ones I could think of.
I can't think of any other.
Anyway, I did more curiosity, but
Oh, invasive.
Right.
required as a condition of attendance. I don't know.
So we don't have that now, other than what's already identified in B.
Right, exactly. Okay. All right. That's why I don't know that. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think it's confusing.
So what's I don't know why they have A, but what's identified in B is the non-invasive, non-emergency, but required, and we provide the yearly notice as well to families.
Right. Okay. Did you have any questions on any of these, or? And it looks like complaints don't go, the complaints go to the Student Privacy Policy Office down in Washington. They don't go to somebody at the district. Okay.
I'm sure they'll come to the district too, but we welcome all complaints.
Parents are not shy.
In addition to, you can contact the Student Privacy Policy Office for sure, but.
All right. I don't know. I didn't have any other questions. I don't know, Jonathan or Ken, if you did.
I didn't. I think they can come to the board. Ken?
All right, we're 3 for 3. 3 go on to the board. I will watch and cheer for you as you.
Oh, wait, I could make up some questions for
All right, well, I'll write up the minutes.
Oh, I think we have one more, Margaret.
Do we have one more?
Yeah, I think so. So, don't we? Or did I?
Items of information, I think that was just support the 5125, just
Okay,
background for
got
the.
it, got it, got it. Yep.
She didn't want to say goodbye, Margaret.
Yeah.
No, not quite, Margaret.
Well, thank you, everyone, for not just tonight, but for everything.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you for jumping in. Homeschool was important to Corey. She didn't want to let that one go before you
I'm
left.
happy that I can see what.
Margaret, you notice what's not on the agenda tonight?
Bullying.
Wellness.
Wellness.
Yeah, that's good too. Yeah, I know,
Although
right?
it's ready.
It is ready. It's actually
There you
ready.
go.
We could do it. Just add it to the Google.
I'm not
Doc.
ready. I'm not ready. No.
Oh, okay.
When Jacob wrote down it. All right, everyone, thank you. This meeting, or do I have a motion to adjourn? Or we don't
I
have-
so move.
Okay, vote.
I don't second.
I refuse to second.
All right, everybody.